In this chapter, we'll focus on using caching with the support of Spring Boot. Caching may not seem all that exciting, and in most cases, it is almost transparent, but it can go a long way in improving the performance of our applications. If you have resource intensive methods within your application that are good candidates for caching, you may want to pay close attention to this chapter. Let's talk a little bit about the content of the lessons in this chapter. We'll start out by building a Spring Boot starter project, and it's going to leverage Spring Boot's caching starter POM, and we'll get quickly set up to perform caching within our application using a generic caching implementation provided by Spring Boot. Next, we're going to switch to a more powerful and well-known caching provider, EHCache. EHCache is one of the roughly 8 caching implementations that Spring Boot supports. You'll also find support for caches provided by Redis, Guava, and Jcache. For our purposes, we're strictly going to focus on EHCache. The configurations of the different caching providers are so similar that it's not worth your time to walk through the configuration of each caching implementation. If you can configure EHCache, you shouldn't have any problems with the other caching implementations supported by Spring Boot. Spring Boot does the majority of the work for you. It's going to auto-configure many of the necessary beans that will be needed to perform caching. And that's where we're going to head to next. We're going to work with caches explicitly within our code by leveraging the Cache Manager bean created and configured by Spring Boot. While this is not the recommended approach, normally you can just use annotations and work transparently with caching. It can be useful for testing situations, so we will take a look at and explore how to work directly with a cache.